saw you talking about.
So we're here for another episode of Tesla Inside Out with David Havasi and myself. And so one of the episodes we had about I think the last minute delivery in 2012. I think it triggered some other stories that you had in mind, or it was Hurricane Sandy, right?
Yeah. When I go back and I watch the video when you post them, there are hundreds of stories, and then it kind of ignites like, oh yeah, well during that time like this other thing happened too, but then it just kind of blows over. So yeah. So
one of them was Hurricane Sandy.
Yeah.
The
So Hurricane. I actually have two good ones from Hurricane.
Okay,
One just
there
came
we go.
So Hurricane Sandy hit in Q4 of 2012. So it would have been the first end of quarter Model S deliveries.
2,500 deliveries that quarter.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Someone's keeping track. Someone's counting. Yeah. So Hurricane Sandy ravaged New York and the surrounding area, New Jersey, which was our operating area. And among that, I mean, kind of touched on that a little bit, where I had to like move out of my place, and a coworker that was actually staying in an extra room had to move out. Several other things happened as well.
You had to move a big printer
in
your first Uber ride.
The first Uber ride, so it's like a lot of shifting around and to make things work. One of the things that we spoke a little bit about off camera, and I'll talk about now, is the service center had lost electricity too. The service center in Long Island City, Queens, which we were using as a hub to a launching point to deliver cars out of. So the delivery trucks would drop the cars off in Long Island City, Queens, and then we would charge them, detail them, put them on the truck and trailer, and then bring them to the homes of the owners.
All home deliveries back?
They were all home deliveries at that point. But Sandy changed all that. There's a couple things. One, the service center had no electricity, and we had a lot of cars that's how they're fueled. So we had to solve that. There were no superchargers at this point. Public chargers were few and far between. So we found two public J1772 chargers across town in Long Island City in this municipal parking lot. And so what we do is we would caravan cars. We had a 24-hour cycle where we were rotating Model S's, plugging into these, and there were not a lot of the charging spots were always open because there just weren't that many electric cars out. So we kind of had carte blanche, and it's kind of this mini miracle that the building manager of this parking garage didn't get wise to this and be like, hey, what are you guys doing? You can't do it anymore. This is like, what are you doing? Monopolizing. So
I mean, how many cars were we talking?
Dozens at a time. So, and you have to also remember, there was no app connectivity to the car. So we couldn't, to find the state of charge of a car, we had to go to each car, open the door, look at the state of charge, write it down on a piece of paper, and then go to the next one. Then we had to take into account vampire effect, battery drain, which was significantly more. They've since made incredible at an algorithm level and thermal management level adjustments to minimize that significantly. We have to remember, we're going into the winter months. The cars are parked outside.
And just to clarify for people who maybe don't know, but vampire drain is when you're not using the car, but the battery is draining because of various features or connected features. So you might go from 30% to 25. What was the kind of battery drain back then for one day park?
It was significant. We could lose 10% overnight.
Wow.
That first generation. So that first iteration, I should say, the software things that were running at the time. So there were two chargers. They're charging 30 amps, 204 volts. So that's like basically 18, 20 miles of charge an hour. And so we would rotate the cars, and we'd have to note them all on a notepad. We made a spreadsheet. That was the most technical thing that was going on, the most technically advanced thing. We had a Google spreadsheet that we shared with the team of states of charge for all the different VINs. And the VINs at that point were only 4 digits. So we just did the last 4 of the VIN. It'd be like P, last 4 of the VIN. And then we'd caravan them. So we would take a manufacturer plate, put them on the cars, and then 3 of us, 4 of us would run them, and then we'd queue them up. The next one that needed to be charged, plug in the ones that needed it the most, set alarms on our phones, calculating when the next one would be done, and then the cycle would continue. We would take the cars that needed to be charged, drop those off, pick up those other ones, drive them back to service center, and we did that around the clock. So it'd be like 3 a.m, and we'd be going to this public garage, and thank God, like, it didn't close, like it was just open, and there wasn't like a security guard like, what are you doing? None of that happened, luckily, because we weren't doing anything bad. It's just something very odd, it's like all these cars, because we had to take the plates off of them too, because we needed those plates. You need the manufacturer plates to move the cars on public streets. So the cars are sitting there with no plate, so it's kind of like, who are these cars? Like, nobody questioned that. I guess the people had bigger fish to fry, which is great, fine by us. So, and then in some cases, because we wanted to hot potato the cars, we didn't want them to dwell. We wanted
Especially
to get them
the vampire drain problem.
Yeah, we needed to get them out and get them to the owners for that reason, and for others. And so sometimes we'd even take the truck and trailer. We would detail the car, drive it to the municipal lot across town, plug it in overnight, knowing that it'll be just right state of charge for the next morning, drive the F-250 Super Duty with a 22-foot Featherlight trailer, back it into the parking garage, and then load the car right from the parking garage, strap it in, and then go to the person's home.
How did you? Was it always just one car at a time, or did you load up multiple cars and then hit this house, this house, this house? How was that process?
Well, the Featherlight trailer. Actually, at that point, we did not have the Featherlight trailer. We were using and I mentioned this in the previous video. We were using the U-Haul auto trailers that we were renting, and we used them. We use them gratuitously, way more than I think their intended function. I think they're meant to haul a car every once in a while. And we were using those things into the ground, way more than I think the U-Haul rental place was intended them to be used. But
so add U-Haul to a list of companies that helped Tesla get off the ground.
yeah. U-Haul's like, yeah, you guys still have the trailer. We're like, yeah, we're gonna need it for a little longer. They're like, yeah, really? Like, how long? We're like, I don't know.
This is from our business.
Like, the person on the other side, they're like, hey, U-Haul calling again. It's like some dude working at the U-Haul in Queens. Where's the because I'm sure like the corporate office is like, checking this is like 2 months. What are they doing?
So how long did you actually use that system?
Off the top of my head. Yeah. But I mean, we were paying for it. It was just unconventional. I'm sure it was very rare that people rented a trailer for that long of time. And so we would load them up and go. What we found, and again, this is another story that just coming to my head now. A very fascinating thing that came about, and a very surreal thing. So what we were doing, what we found when Hurricane Sandy hit was, and this is cool. I was thinking about this now, but it's a fun story. Not only was there no electricity, there was no gas at the gas stations because people started rationing gas. Well, like just like in Florida when hurricanes hit, gas stations run out of gas because people are they're stocking up on gas for their cars. Same thing happened in New York and the surrounding area. There wasn't gas anywhere. So ironically, we didn't have gas to fuel the diesel pickup trucks that pulled the trailers to deliver our electric cars. So it was a dilemma. So for the first time so what we did was we called the owners to get their permission, say, with your permission, ironically, we don't have gas to fuel the diesel trucks that deliver the car to you. With your permission, we will drive it to you. And of course they were okay with that. But then we needed a ride back. And Lyft and Uber wasn't really a thing. Not in like Long Island, like out in some of these suburbs that we're going out to. So what we did was we had a trade-in Roadster, and we put him just sitting in the corner. It was this green trade-in Roadster that somebody traded in for a signature Model S. We put a manufacturer plate on it. We would drive the Model S, signature Model S, to the person's home with a Roadster, with a chase vehicle, which was a Roadster, which was another Tesla delivery person. And we'd stop off, do the delivery, and both of us would drive back in the Roadster. What was really surreal was we were driving through the streets of New York City, and it was like apocalyptic. It was like a zombie movie. The streets were empty. There were no cars on the streets. There were no cabs. There were no buses. There was no people commuting because nobody had gas. So we were driving through the empty streets of New York in these 2 electric cars.
In a green Roadster.
Yeah, in a green road. And it was like, it'd just be like silent. The streets of New York were silent, and then be like, and we drive past gas stations. Bloomberg had set a gas rationing, and then he said certain gas stations were allotted certain amounts of gas just to start getting gas in. So we had these 2-mile long line of gas cars waiting to fuel, and people like holding these barrels. It was like this third world country, like this breadline kind of scenario. So it was surreal. You had empty streets because nobody had gas to fuel their cars. You had these lines of gas cars waiting, like literally like a mile long, for this one gas station that had gas in New York City. And then you had these 2 electric cars driving by, and it was this really surreal moment.
I just keep thinking, man, I wish that was filmed. Like, that would be so awesome filmed.
Yeah.
That could make it into a Hollywood movie with that kind of.
Yeah. I'm sure I have a picture of it somewhere. I'll have to look, like out the window of the Tesla, because the irony was not lost. When we were driving, he'd be like, "Did you see that? Like, wasn't that surreal?"
Yeah.
And
any interesting reactions from the buyers when they saw you
roll up with it? No, I don't think they even, because I don't Tesla.
They got their car. And
for the buyers that ordered the Tesla.
Yeah, when you're delivering with the green Roadster and
they thought it was, they thought it was cool. They definitely acknowledged it. One of the coolest stories was ironically, there was a gas station across the street from the Long Island City Queens Delivery Center, and it didn't have gas. So finally, but finally they got diesel. So we were back in business. They were one of the few places, like we were miles that could do that. So we're like, cool, we're back in business. And so I loaded up it was a black signature Model S, and this customer, he's a really, really awesome guy. I can't say his name, but I can describe him. He was basically like, his doppelganger was Richard Chamberlain. So if you know the actor Richard Chamberlain, He was like his twin. He was American, but had this kind of New England, it was pseudo-British accent. He's a very proper New England gentleman, and he spoke very deliberately. And so he had a penthouse in Manhattan, in the city of New York, in Manhattan, but he also had a farm in the Hamptons, and he wanted his car to be delivered to his farm in the Hamptons. And so we finally got gas for the trucks. So I loaded up the F-250 with diesel. I put his car on the trailer, and he was in the city, but I was going to meet him at his farm in the Hamptons to take delivery of his Model S. So I pull onto a 495, and I see that I missed a call. And it was from him. And I saved the voice. I'll have to pull up the voicemail. It's so good, but I can tell you what he said. So I listened to the voicemail. He said, I guess I can say his first name. He's like, "Hello, David. This is Val. I'm afraid I'm going to be a little late for our rendezvous at my farm in the Hamptons. I'm having trouble finding fuel for my antiquated gasoline-powered machine."
Oh my god!
So to this day, I refer to gas cars as antiquated gasoline-powered machines. Because I just thought that was so great. It was just like awesome. Off the cuff, like that's how he, presented. I'm afraid I'm going to be late. Yeah,
I just wish the whole thing was filmed. It's like this could go straight into. Well, someone could film it one day, right? This could go into a movie.
This will all be hopefully content that people find remotely interesting and want to recreate. To film, because I think it is fascinating stuff. It's a nice little snapshot, in time, and again, just the improbability of it, and just the incredible irony of
it's like the kind of situation. I mean, you sort of can't believe it happened. Like it sounds like it's something someone dreamt up for a movie, not something that actually has.
There is this, the movie Vanilla Sky. Where Tom Cruise wakes up and then he's running down Times Square and there's nobody in Times Square, and the production company, the movie studio, spent millions on this permit to block off Times Square to shoot that scene, because they cordoned off that area, they kind of quarantined it, and around that perimeter was the hustle and bustle of New York City, millions and millions and millions of people. But what was crazy was there was this moment where both of us, I think it was Armin and I, were in the Roadster driving through Times Square, right through the heart of Manhattan. And the lights were dark, and some of the lights were because above 14th Street, electricity was starting to come on. But there was still no cars and no people.
We had like a multi-million-dollar setting.
Yeah, we were driving through it, and it was like the same environment, but for free, because it was just like because Mother Nature happened. And so it was this like surreal, it was, just a surreal thing, because the hustle and bustle of, it was interesting, you have a setting that is traditionally the epitome of activity. And then the lack of it was jarring. And then you had this kind of, the Roadster had this really cool tone to it, like the hum from the motor. So I was like, wow, you like you hear it through the buildings. That was like super. And it was just kind of
being green too. It must have just been something, stands out that much more. Right?
Yeah.
But, well, we have to take a quick break and think of the next story.
Yeah.
Sure. But